Last time we spoke, we
Mm-hmm.
talked about USMLE, and you're the
Yes.
person who passed all three USMLE steps. And of course, it's not just passing the test, it's also now what do you do after that? So now three
Mm-hmm.
steps are done, but you need to find residency. And you entering
Mm-hmm.
a very competitive market, and you
Yeah.
enter with so many other people who passed the test. And what do you do
Yep.
now? Now, I would like to tell people who are interested in going to the States and passing USMLE and trying to get work
Yep.
as a doctor in the US, I would like to tell them what is it ahead of them. And I would like to ask you to share your experience and tell them how did you start. So let's say you pass all the exams, you're absolutely happy now, you're celebrating, but it's just the beginning. It's not the end, right? So it's just the beginning of the journey. So let's talk
Yep.
about how did you get residency. I'd like to start with your story. Can you tell what you do now? Where do you work? So people understand and we can kind of
Right now where I work, or how did I get to the residency?
actually I think we probably should do both because you are practicing physician now, but you
That is
started
correct.
with residency and you had to make a choice which specialty you want to go for.
Yes.
I'd
Yes.
like to know how hard or easy it was and how did
Yes.
you make that choice. Let's start there.
Yes. So once you done with your steps,
Mm-hmm.
step one, step two, two parts of the step two, you get certification from UCFG. Once you have that certification, it's before your step three, you get certification. You can now legally apply to residencies
Mm-hmm.
throughout the country, any residency you'd like, right? But now the process goes, okay, what specialty I want to practice in, right? What you yourself like the most. Some people like surgery, some people like internal medicine, some people like other specialties. And depending on that, you kind of have your goal too. Okay, so let's say I want to be a dermatologist, you know. If you want to be a dermatologist, your score should be very high, you know. You know that getting in dermatology residency is very competitive.
And that's
And
only on USMLE, or there is anything else that gets considered for it for residency, or just USMLE?
first thing is a score.
Okay.
First thing is a score. And I want to mention there about the score topic. There is rumors that they will not have scores anymore. It's going to be a pass fail, which is very interesting. I don't know how it's going to work out when it's going to be just pass and fail, how they going to measure candidates between each other, you know, and say, oh, we don't like this one because his score is low, and we like this one because her score is better. So I don't know how it's going to work out maybe 3-4 years from now. But right now, the score based first step, you know, any residency, they have kind of cut off for their program, you know. And then, and we know among the specialities like neurosurgery, dermatology, and a few others have the highest scores to get into. Orthopedic, I think, orthopedic surgery too. So that would mean that you have to have high score. So if you are, I think doesn't matter if you're American graduate or international graduate or Caribbean graduate, you have to have your like expectations realistic. So let's say you want to be a dermatologist and you have very low score, you have to have expectation that you might not get it.
I have a question here. So do you need to have that high score after level 2? Step 2, UCMLE?
So step 1 is the most important.
Okay, so it's basically that.
And then the rest of it, in the step 1, 2, you should be should show that you did not fail. You passed it first attempt. So that's another important thing. And then once you like figured out, okay, I want to do this, but I cannot get there because my scores are too low, or I can compromise and do this, you know, because I still like medicine and it's part of the medicine, or this part of the surgical specialty, it's easier to get and I want to still be surgeon. Then you start to work towards that goal. The end goal is to be able to match and get into residency. So for American graduates, it's easier in a way that because they get, direct experience with the American system, and then you get recommendation letters from, your mentors, your professors that you worked with during medical school time. For foreign graduates, it's a bit different, and I think it's a bit different for foreign graduates from different countries as well.
Okay.
Let's say you're from the country where a lot of American doctors now here, so you have some connections. You can have your like uncle, buddy, or somebody to connect you with and get into that physician's office or that program or wherever the physician works, and then have some sort of observership or like a shadowing or whatever, and get some recommendation letter. Or there's another option for people who don't have that connections. Some programs allow observerships, and that observerships you kind of apply, you pay money, and you pay money. Basically, that money does not go to the program. Program does not benefit from you, because American Medical Association does not allow benefiting from that. It's just the money goes to cover all of those paperwork and clerical work that needs to be done in order for you to be in a hospital. Because being in a hospital, it's a liability, and it's someone going from outside getting in. And in the hospitals, it's very protected areas in America, and I think in the all Western world,
Yes.
like somebody cannot just get in and start to see the patient.
Yeah.
So you have to have some level of access to it. So this is another way of getting that, exposure and establishing some contacts, connections, and yes, go ahead.
So to clarify on this, after passing USIMLE or after passing the second step, you would suggest to go to the US and start this process in person, being physically present. Am I?
That is correct. That is correct. It's mainly done because again, so let's say you have a good score and you can you're applying to programs in internal medicine, right? And let's say I am a program director for one of the internal medicine programs. So once your documents pass that bar limit for the scores, I looked at your documents. The next thing I look at the recommendation letters, because I want to know, are you a crazy person or not? Are you reliable or not? And depending on those recommendation letters, and then those candidates will be called for the in-person interviews. At least it used to be like that. Yes. Before pandemic. I don't know how they're doing right now during pandemic. I heard they're doing Zoom interviews.
Probably to go online and do similar.
Yeah. So yes, that would be like main factor in that, so that helps for the program directors to differentiate. And for you also, let's say you did some observership in one of the programs and you showed that you can be reliable, you showed that you have an interest, and they can even say, okay, this guy is, looks good, he's, not crazy, No. In the end of the day, the residency programs, they need someone to graduate, they want someone who's going to learn and become in the end physician.
Yes.
So not everyone who gets into residency end up graduating. Some people quit. Some people cannot, for some people, it's psychologically it's too much, physically too much, family stuff, lots of other reasons too. So residency programs also look for someone to finish the residency.
Yeah.
They don't want someone to quit in 2 years and then they're like, okay, we had 9 physicians working for us and now we have 8. That would mean that all of the volume of the work now will be on 8 physicians instead of 9 training physicians, residents. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you about specialty. Would you suggest to choose just one specialty and just apply to as many places potentially as possible? Or you just to have a backup specialty? Or maybe even a third option and apply to different specialties? Like, would that make your chances of getting good residency higher, lower? What will be the good strategy?
It's hard to say. I did not do that way because I did not have financial means to apply. Because applying is the money too. Every single program you pay a fee to send your documents. So I know some people do it that way. They have some backup plans. You know, they apply for their specialty they really wish to be, but they realize they might not get that, so they apply for backup. In that case, in my opinion, I feel like you become kind of, it might be disappointment for you in the end, if you're like going to do a backup thing, but for some people not, but for me personally, it would be. Yeah.
And how long did it take, the process from you when you started sending your documents to the point where you received your results? What is the time frame?
So the process for getting into the residency and interview season, and I think the first it starts in the mid-September. You apply your documentation and everything is done online. And once you did all of that, it takes few weeks for the programs to respond to you, the ones that chose you to come for interview, in-person interview. And then,
so it seems like it's short. It's a few weeks, like a couple of months, so relatively soon.
Yes. So if it's a mid-September, you did that. For example, I found out I got my first program sending me invitation in the end of September. Actually, it was 2 weeks after. Yeah. And then they send you like dates. They say, we interviewed this date. Please choose one and send us back if you want to come and interview. So then you send, and they recommend to do it, in a timely manner too, because sometimes they fill up with other applicants, and then you start to book your, flight or bus drive, or you get a car and drive there. But it can take up to like until the season ends, I think in February. In February, both applicants and programs, they send to this online system. They apply for applicants, which programs they think number 1 choice, number 2, number 3, and so forth. And the programs, they do the same thing. Who were their number 1 choice from those applicants they interviewed, number 2, number 3, and then they rank them. So I think it can be from mid-September until February, anytime. So sometimes what happens, let's say the program, for example, I can say that some smaller programs, they interview like 100, 150 people during that season, right? Total. They send those invitations, let's say all answered, right? But then mid-season, 10 of them says, oh, we find a place. We're not going to come for interview. So now you have 10 people that you want to fill in. So they start to reach out to other 10. They were on the list lower, so you might still get invitation at mid-January, mid-December,
Okay. And you said it's also because for you, it was also financial matter, right? To choose how many programs you're going to send your documents to. How many programs did you send it to? And what would your suggestion be to consider? Let's say 5 is the minimum, or 7 is the minimum, or 3 maybe. in order to have higher chances to get in? Let's say if someone is in a similar situation, let's say they have relatively limited
just like me. It's just
ability.
like me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, and in neurology, I think it was total 100 something programs, and I choose by reviewing every single program. You know, you can review them on their website, and I reviewed if they have like international medical graduates, you know, or IMGs in their program. So, and then I applied probably 60 or 70 programs.
60? 60?
660, 6070. I can't remember exactly. So around that number. Yeah. And I also applied for internal medicine preliminary programs, the 1 year, because if you, some neurology programs, they are full 4 years, and some of them 3 years only, and then you have to do somewhere else that first year of internal medicine. So, yeah.
I guess the next question would be, when you get into residency, you're being paid resident, right? You start being...
Say it again.
When you get into residency, you're being paid as a resident.
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah.
Similar everywhere in all programs, or it varies across the country?
It varies from region to region. I think on average, it's between 50 to 70,000 a year.
Okay, but at least
it used to be
the costs that you had to spend up front, right? Because when you apply to 60, 70 programs, it all adds up. But you know that you will be paid and you can cover that. So I'm trying to say that the people understand that if they do that, they will be able to cover the cost.
Well, you cannot cover right away, right? Yeah. So if you're a foreigner, you don't have a credit card or something to put that money on. So you have to have that money up front. While if you're, you know, from here, you can put that money in your credit card. Yes and no, depending on situation, you know. If you're going to be ending up in New York City, your 60,000 is not a lot of money, because you need to find a living place, you know, and stuff like that. While if you end up being in smaller towns, you can actually even buy a house. So it's very variable depending where you're at. Yeah. So.
But it's something to consider as well while you're making the choices, right? When you were looking at the program.
That is correct. That's correct. It's very important to realize that if you are in a bigger cities, that, you know, your money will not go too far. And, you know, in residencies, the money you get paid so you can have a place to live. And most places it's called stipend, you know. So you get paid so you can have a place to live and something to eat. I don't think the residents have so much free time to go and hang around. You know, maybe in their final year of training. But by that time, usually you're so tired.
Okay, well, I guess the last question would be, can you share some of your tips and suggestions on how to getting a residency?
Getting into residency. Well, to get your recommendation letters, and the folks who's going to write recommendation letters should be the, you know, the people who really care and will be kind of, you know, honest, and will write the letters on their own words, you know, instead of just, you know, some templates, you know, and try to get as best scores as possible during your steps, and what else? Do your research for the programs, which ones to apply, depending on your situation. And and then statement. During the application process, you write a statement why you want to be in this like residency or this profession. So write that. Uh, I feel like shorter, better. Within one page is enough. But you have to be very, very like whatever you think to put that on a paper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that convinces them to take you.
Say it again.
Something that can convince them that they need to take you.
That is correct. Yes. If somebody reads that, will feel like they want to invite you, because they're not seeing you personally, they're just reading the paper.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay. And I think that would be the most challenging part, because you are just a file for quite some time until you meet them.
That is correct. Yeah. And I feel like the writing part also can be challenging for, again, it's probably challenging for everyone, but I think it's more challenging for someone who never spoke English, or wrote in English, anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know what, we'll think about it after we've done the recording. Maybe we'll think about what we can include in the description of the video to share maybe some resources or suggestions so people can go if they want to learn how to write those type of documents in personal statements, so they can use those resources. But maybe we will chat about it, and I will leave that below the video.
Okay.